I stop and stare at a large stone spiral. It's on top of a lookout point in Tilden Park. It's one of those places along the ridge where the world opens up in front of you, like a picture book. Across the wind-ruffled bay to the west, the Golden Gate Bridge still stands, one of the few historical artifacts outside the city's gleaming walls. Of course, the bridge no longer serves the purpose for which it was built. Now it's primarily a wildlife crossing for wolves, grizzlies, and antelope. When I stroll across the Golden Gate, I try to see it through the eyes of my great-grandmother, Gran. She used to commute past this exact point in bumper-to-bumper traffic. Gran loved this city, but she hardly could have imagined the single, vast, tree-like structure that we all live in. It rises from what was once the Fillmore district, that's base reaching from Pacific Heights to Civic Center to Haight-Ashbury. Glass, steel, cement, laminated graphene, and living wood twist into, across, and around each other like a thick bundle of rope. Higher up, the main trunk of this city development splits into narrower and narrower branches. Each branch contains thousands of apartments. Built into this structure, there are also schools, hospitals, and restaurants. It's all contained in the structure. Narrow pedestrian bridges arc from branch to branch. Birds and drones dart through the tangle. I think modern San Francisco would surprise any visitor from the 21st century. But I think what would surprise Gran the most is what's not there. She'd failed to find the once bustling ferry building and even Sausalito, where she grew up. I begin to walk the spiral. A breeze blows across the ridge. Can you believe that in my 140 years on this blue-green marble of a planet, that I never once left the bay? Oh, I've had plenty of good reasons to travel, but I just found breadth in puzzles rather than swaths of vast geography. Fresh out of school well over a century ago, I was mystified by what foolishness governed public life. A dysfunctional healthcare system, a housing crisis, skies choked with wildfire smoke, funding for prisons exceeding funding for education. I had a long list of complaints, but whining wouldn't help society. So I pushed for reform by becoming a grassroots activist. But activism presented a new puzzle. Better policies only work if politicians implement them. So I went into politics. I got a seat on the Board of Supervisors, and then I went on to become the mayor. Finally, I left City Hall and went back to school to study physics. At Lawrence Livermore, I was working on an early prototype of the fusion reactors that power modern cities, including San Francisco. But to make real change, I needed money. So I got into real estate. I bought a long-dead factory, and tapping my old network at City Hall, I converted it into an open market with community housing. Yeah, we used self-healing biobricks, carbon-sucking cement, and mycelium fireproofing. Then we leapfrogged into larger developments, attracting more creative and economic energy into the city. There is the world as it is, and then there is the world you envision. Activist, politician, scientist, entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist. I'd been pushing the world to conform to my vision for what it could become. I finally realized I needed to empower others to invent their own future. And that's how I became what I am today, a teacher. Midway through walking the spiral, I kneel to push an errant stone back into place. High above, a golden eagle. Across the water, San Francisco buzzes with life. How many weddings, how many births, how many first kisses and new beginnings are taking place as I take in this view. I push myself to my feet and my joints complain bitterly. I don't blame them. They spent way too long above ground. If I were born today, I'd write a list of complaints as long as the one I wrote when I was young, a century ago. We still live on the brink of apocalypse. Environmental groups can't agree on which extinct species to resurrect. How far back in the genetic code is enough? New designer drugs hit the street daily. Woo! Some of them are extremely fun. But don't tell my students. I could go on forever, but I won't. A friend once told me about a trip she'd taken, and one detail in her story stuck with me. As the drone leapt off the launch pad, the little boy in the seat behind her screamed, "Yes! Yes!" And everyone laughed and applauded. And when they reached cruising altitude and everyone went back to their distractions, she realized that boy was the only one who understood how miraculous their flight really was. Whenever life feels impossible, I just try to channel that little boy. I remind myself how incredible it is that San Francisco became an archetype of urban reconsolidation. I reach the center of the spiral. A spiral is the simplest form of labyrinth. To navigate a labyrinth is to quest within, feeling whatever monsters are slumbering in your heart. My thoughts spiral just like this path. I can't escape it, even in dreams. Worse, every time I solve a puzzle, it reveals itself to be a piece of a much larger puzzle that is San Francisco. And puzzles like San Francisco can't be solved, only reinvented. Maybe that's the deepest problem of all. There is no victory condition, no ultimate triumph, no end game. Life can get infinitely better while remaining endlessly problematic.